Hi, Paul Nolan here for Make Your Transition and for Beatport, and yes, I am back once again, and today we're going to take a deep dive into the murkier corners of the tech house world. We've got a wonderful pack here for you, which is an exclusive to Beatport Sounds, which is by Catalyst Sounds, and it's called Dirty Tech House, so no prizes for guessing how it sounds. We're going to go into the production styles of artists including Claude Von Stroke and Billy Kenny, and labels such as DirtyBird, so if that's your sound then you've come to the right place. Let's waste no more time, jump straight into Ableton Live 10.1, the brand new beta version of Live 10, and see what's going on. Okay, so we're in Ableton Live 10.1, brand new beta version of Ableton, and we're going to build some drum rack selectors for the drum sounds within the Catalyst Dirty Tech House pack. So you can see I've already got it in the browser. I'm going to go to the one-shots, and we're going to start with the kick, and then we'll repeat it for the other elements here, clap, hi-hat, snare, etc. I'm going to take this first kick, I'm going to select them all, drag them all into pad C1, and if I hold command you can see I can drag them all in onto one pad. Now if I was to start hitting MIDI here, we're going to just get a mess, but we're going to evenly distribute the chains here across the range of 120 to 0 to 127, and then we're going to be able to select them using macro controls. So I'm going to drag these values out here in the chain view within the instrument rack that it's made. I'm going to select distribute ranges equally, and then this chain selector here, if I was to open out each individual sound here, you can see that I can move between all the different kicks. I can now map that to a macro. So let's map that to macro 1. That's now called chain selector. And if you've got a MIDI controller like I have here on a push, I can then use a MIDI controller to dial between all the different kicks. Now I'm going to change the name of the pad here to kick so we know exactly what that is. I'm going to open out the macros here, but what I'm going to do here for simplicity is map this chain selector to macro 1 of the overall drum rack. So yeah, I've just mapped a macro to a macro, which means this can all go away, and I can then move everything from the main drum rack. So I'm going to repeat this now for all of the other categories of sounds, and then we're going to make a drum loop based on these selections. Okay, so as you can see, I have now done all of the different categories here for the single hit drum sounds, and we've got selectors for all of them. I've added some EQ to each individual sound as well, so I've got the kick rolled off a little bit, hi-hats a little bit nice and sharp, again just a bit of a roll off, and then added the drum bus plugin just to add a little bit of process and a little bit of thickness, toughness, etc. So I'm going to be able to now put my nominal kicks. I can take these patterns here, add in a hat, add in a clap on the 2 and the 4, and then the percs and the snares will work out as we go. So if I just hit play here, I'm good to go. But I can also then change the selection of the kick depending upon what the various different sounds are doing. And as luck would have it, I do like the first samples on the clap and the hi-hat. So now I can start to add a little bit of shuffle, a little bit of groove to it. And if I want multiples of the same selector, it's quite simple. What I can do is hold Option, drag onto the next pad here, and I can rename that hat 2. So say for example, some of those smaller kind of like more closed hat sounds, I might want to use those for like sort of 16th note kind of shuffles. So what I can do then is go back into the instrument rack and then say for example map to macro 6, and then I can rename that hat 2. Now that means I can then control that in very much the same way. So that sample, for example, I could then hit my repeat on my push controller. Yeah, quite like that pattern. So then I can just record in on the 16th note. There you go. I can just add that in there, legato that, and then I can duplicate the loop out to 8 bars and then start to fill in the perks and snares and stuff. So yeah, we've got lots of control here. So I'll record in some snare and perk variations here, and then we're going to be ready to move on to the bass. Okay, so as you can see, I have fleshed out the drums a little bit more, added another hi-hat and some snare and some perk fills, and it sounds a little bit like this. So you get the idea there. So it's nice and full, and we've got a rolling bass line to go underneath it. So I've picked number 11 from the bass loops folder in this lovely tech house pack. And instead of just playing it like a regular loop, I'm going to right click here, insert a MIDI track, and then just drag and drop it into the channel, open up a simpler, hit warp so I can play the sample with the right timing at various pitches, and then hit loop so I can then loop it through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play it now with a few variations into a MIDI clip here, so it'll give you a bit of an idea about what type of variations we can explore. So there you go. So you've got a couple of different variations there. Now what I can do is I can quantize these guys and then legato them all together, so it'll sound a bit like this. This is quite a nice little skip there, but I just want to move that back one. And maybe even further again. There you go. And it just gives us a nice little bit of a roll. Now, if I add onto this just a little bit of auto filter with some MS2 and a little bit of drive, you may have seen me do this in previous tutorials, and I'm going to use a little bit of EQ just underneath that, just to roll it off so keep the low end under control. And then I'm going to add a little bit of sidechain compression as well using a glue compressor, and I'm just going to route that to the kick, and then we should be off and rolling. So there you go. So we've now got the bass in place as well as the drums. We can now go into some lead sounds, atmospheres, and effects. So moving on into the leads now, I've picked this really cool kind of synth pluck, twisted kind of sound, which goes really well with the bass. So you can hear I've got the brand new delay effect on the Ableton Live 10.1 beta here, and I've got that just echoing away in the background, so it throws the notes around and adds a bit of complexity. Just added a bit of EQ, and I'm then going to add a little bit of beat repeat here. Now we can have a lot of fun with this and add a lot of variation. So we're taking these loops as starting points, as a jumping off point, and really making it our own by stuttering and adding these really weird repeats. So just have a listen to this. And again, bear in mind that anything that is repeated is also going to be sent to the delay, which will then add another layer of musicality to this loop. So you can hear it does a lot of random stuff, and maybe not all of it is exactly what we want to do in the track. So what I would do here is I would start a new audio channel. I would then collect the audio for this channel from resampling, which then means I can solo this track. I can hit monitor auto on the resampling track, hit record. I'm also going to take the send off because I want the dry sound, and then I can hit record here for a few seconds, and you can capture all of these variations as an audio file, which then you can piece together through the arrangements of the track. So you can hear and see all of these lovely little variations that you've got here, and then you can chunk that into slices and then be able to vary them through the track as and when you need. And then if I put the monitor back to off here, or actually on auto, and then send from here and play this, and we can now use that alongside the rest of the track. So all that's left for us to do now is add some risers, some effects and some atmospheres, and we will be ready to start arranging this track. Okay, so our final little details for the Catalyst Dirty Tech House pack is to use a couple of these little atmospheric loops. And you can just hear that little interesting loop there, and it just adds a little bit of texture in the background to everything. So if I was to play that alongside everything else. And again, it's just bubbling away in the background just to add a little bit of extra texture, grit, a little bit of filth, if you will. And then just a vinyl noise, a beautiful little vinyl noise loop. Just drop that down in level a little bit, and then yeah, we're good to go there as well. Now on the effect side of things, I've got a down shifter, if you will, and a more explosive riser at the start of the beat. And you can see here I've done some offsetting to these files here, and you can see they're already sidechained. They've already got that kind of bouncy kind of rhythm to them, so it's quite cool. Now I've offset this by 4 bars, so the whole thing loops every 8 bars. So the two of them work quite well together, where you've got this working on bar 1, beat 1, and then as this fades away, the riser comes up. So you'll hear these two work quite well together. So there you go. So we've got the bases here to move into an arrangement and get a fully fledged track out of this very, very quickly. Hope you've enjoyed watching and you've learned something today. I've been Paul Nolan for Beatport and Make Your Transition. Speak to you soon. Goodbye.